Right, it's the Tifo Football Podcast. Hello, this is your intro telling you what we are talking about today. Seb is here.
Hi, Joe.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. I wasn't paying attention, but I am now.
That's fine. Okay, we had Roshane Thomason today from The Athletic, who is one of The Athletic's West Ham correspondents, stroke writers.
The Athletic's West Ham correspondent.
He's the guy.
Yeah.
He's the guy to go to for West Ham related topics of conversation, which was useful today because that was the entire conversation. So what did we cover? We covered ownership. We covered 10 years since the ownership. We covered the team. We covered, what did we cover? You'll make it sound better than I'm making it sound.
10 years of the ownership.
yes. That's 10 years since the beginning of the ownership.
I feel like we did a pretty complete job. I mean, obviously...
well, don't pat yourself on the back too much. Let's just...
No, I felt like Roshane did a really good job. I mean, we just kind of went along with what he was going with. I think, obviously, West Ham being in the news cycle at the moment, we started with the ownership, which is kind of the relationship between the fans and the ownership and this sort of growing tension, which is developed. Because obviously, like, it felt like when the anniversary of their decade in charge came round, it felt like that stirred up quite a lot of things in people.
Yeah. As
if people kind of, it was a way of measuring the stasis and the inertia, however you want to put it. That was the starting point. We did everything. We did the team and Moyes as well.
Sebella as well.
We did as well.
Very exciting.
Yeah, Michael Antonio.
Yeah, okay. I think that was it, wasn't it? Well, anyway, that's today's episode. Thank you for downloading it. I do hope you enjoy it. Let me first tell you that if you would like to check out The Athletic, who are kindly the sponsors of today's episode, you can visit theathletic.co.uk/Tifo and get 50% off an annual subscription after a 7-day free trial. That's 8p a day. And if you're a West Ham fan, I think it's very worthwhile. Seb and I were going through a lot of the coverage over the last few weeks before today's podcast, and Rosh's writing is very in-depth and covers all the areas that you would presumably like to be reading about. So go and check it out. And you've got 7 days to have a read of it first. If you like it, stick around. It's super cheap, and it is fantastic. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Your yawning is unrelated.
I've had a long weekend. The prospect of the free trial is exciting.
You're just tired as a person.
I'm just tired as a person.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks so much. And here's today's episode. Hello, and welcome to the Tifo Football Podcast. I am Joe Devine, and today I am joined by Seb.
Hi, Joe.
Hello, Seb. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Good. And Seb and I are delighted to be joined by Roshane Thomas.
Thanks for having me, guys.
How are you doing, man?
Well, I was fine, but not after that draw against Brighton on Saturday.
It was a rough weekend, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Roshane is the West Ham correspondent for The Athletic, and you're here today to talk to us all about West Ham.
Indeed.
It's very exciting, isn't it?
100%. Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
So, Seb, where's the best place to start? We were talking beforehand, and you were mentioning that there were some protests about a week ago.
So... It's coming out on Tuesday, but we're recording on a Monday. So yesterday I was doing Tottenham against Man City, and on my way to the ground I saw sort of footage of the clip that Sky Sports recorded just before Sunday Supplement. They issued an apology to West Ham. It's honestly one of the strangest bits of television I've ever seen. I think I retweeted it, so if you want to go to my Twitter profile and have a look at it, or find Miguel Delaney's, he put it out there. But it's one of the in tone, it's bizarre.
They helped script it, right? I was reading about this.
I have no idea.
I read the Daily Mail piece on it, and apparently there was in-depth negotiations over the weekend between West Ham and Sky, and part of those negotiations was the club actually helped to script what he was going to say as part of his apology, which explains why they were so keen to talk about the massive investment put into the club by West Ham and how everything's absolutely fine.
I think why I struggle, Joe, is because I know the size of entity that we're talking about at Sky Sports.
Yeah.
And I also know that sort of the nature of the programme, Sunday Supplement. So for viewers who are not in the UK, it's like a Sunday morning sort of round table with senior journalists, and they just cycle through the football issues of the week.
And we also eat the croissant every now and then.
Yeah, but this is the thing. I like when I start to know people that go on it, I just think, why do you never see anyone actually eating one? Like you see all those plates and there's like a half-eaten muffin and sort of an orange juice, but I don't believe that all of that food is real. Like a sort of
staged food.
Yeah, it's made of wax or something.
Someone occasionally bites into a plastic apple.
Yeah, and then the camera catches them with half a croissant hanging out mouth or a pan of chocolat or something.
That's actually not a bad metaphor for Sunday supplement.
Maybe, but I think what I found strange is because I'd watched the previous week's episode in which three journalists sort of had quite a lot to say about the running of West Ham, and we were up to the sort of the 10-year anniversary of David Gould, David Sullivan, and their takeover, and also Karen Brady being at the club, and it was. I mean, some of the criticism was fierce, but it wasn't.
Well, the Mail said that specifically the thing that upset them, the club, the most was the comment from one of. I can't remember which guest it was, but the comment was. Apparently in reference to players, but it was ambiguous as to whether they meant players or owners or directors with their hands in the till. Quotes, hands in the till.
Okay.
The Sky said that what they meant by that was that players were earning a lot of money when they shouldn't be. But obviously that's quite easy to misunderstand. Yeah. It sounds almost like they're alleging that there's some theft going on.
Okay, well, once I segue us quickly away from this, like
next week we'll be apologising.
Yeah. Well, no, the reason I thought we'd start with this is because Rosh, a couple of weeks ago, I can't remember which game it was before.
It was prior to the Everton game.
So prior to the Everton game, you recorded like a fan protest because what happened with the Sunday supplement thing seems to be like a natural lead on from a lot of dissatisfaction among the fan base, which obviously manifesting in the grounds, but on blogs and on the internet everywhere. Like, and it would just be interesting to start by just sort of tracing that back. So what was the nature of the protest?
Well, the nature of the protest, like fans just frustrated with what Braid, Gould and Sullivan have done during the past 10 years.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole stadium was about West Ham competing the next level, trying to get to Europe, happy times, but it's been the complete opposite of that. If you look at where West Ham are on the table right now, fans are like, well, we'd like we start Upton Park, we'd like we start London Stadium, so where's the difference? So even now when I'm speaking to fans are like, this will build on, like we will get momentum from this.
Yeah.
I think I'm right in saying there's going to be another protest February 29th.
Okay.
So, I mean, even when I was there as well, I made sure I was broadcasting live on Twitter. So
I was watching it. Yeah.
So people could see what was going on. Because I didn't want to do like 10-second videos here and there. Like people should see what's actually taking place. And I mean, fans are just frustrated. Loads of banners with some distasteful comments, which I won't say now, but
it's out of frustration.
Yeah.
Like, it's also, I'm a Tottenham fan, so I can kind of sneer at what's happening with West Ham a little bit. Like, it doesn't sadden me. But on a more serious note, like, it's interesting because the premise for.
So sorry, just carry on. I'm sure it'll be fine.
I can barely hear you, but okay. So the premise for leaving Upton Park in the first place is this kind of this new era of being competitive, and it's kind of, given what the London Stadium is, it's an incredible price to pay for just ultimately being in the same position.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, this is the thing. I read your piece alongside Ollie Kay in The Athletic, and you mentioned this at the beginning, that obviously after all of the promises and after moving to the new stadium, West Ham find themselves in the same league position 10 years later than when the two Davids took over in the first place. I suppose the interesting thing for me, as an outsider thinking about the problems at West Ham, they all centre around the stadium, right? Yeah. And it's more less about the financial situation there, because it's difficult to make an argument against that. I mean, the government got such a bad deal as it relates to that West Ham seems to be, running away laughing there. So it's less about the financial side of it, and it's more about the community side of it. And I think, if I'm right, is it that the issue kind of hinges on the fact that certain promises were made to people that, okay, we're going to sacrifice our home here, but we're going to do that and we're going to get this, and that's going to be challenging for Europe, that's going to be younger, better players, that's going to be better football. Presumably that's what people are upset about, because it's not that West Ham have no money, right?
That was the selling point, the whole mantra at the time, and it's been the complete opposite. I mean, I think I'm right in saying Gold at the time said, we're going to try and do much better in cup competitions. And that has not been the case.
No, right,
I mean, West Ham, it's been a regular thing for West Ham to get knocked out early in cups. against lower opposition teams as well. So that's been a concern. Again, league position, it's not promising. Signings, I mean, in defence of the board, there has been a few like signings that have been invested in the team, but it hasn't been the right personnel.
Right.
And one of West Ham's biggest problems is like the defending, which we saw on Saturday. There's been hardly any money invested in defence, barring Issa Diop and perhaps Alpha Masuaku.
Right.
If you look at that team, it's been Fredericks free signing, Zabaleta free signing, Cresswell, a few million winning the championship.
Balbuena, a couple of million.
Yeah,
five or something like that.
Balbuena, a couple of million.
Yeah.
Mr. Reed, good defender, but I mean, 10 years ago?
Yeah.
So that's been West Ham's like Achilles heel, so to speak. And fans are like, yeah, we can sign flair players like Anderson, the Fornals of this world, but we're good going forward, but when it comes to defending, that's why we're so far down the table.
Actually, that's a really good point, because also, I don't have a goalkeeper there, because Fabianski's worked out really well, and his form's been great when he's been fit. He's been terrific, but I mean, that's kind of lucky.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so little money spent on him. And if you look at the other goalkeepers that they've had recently, Adrian originally, I want to say, was a free transfer when he came to the club.
I think I'm saying that.
Joe Hart was on loan.
Yeah.
Roberto. What a time! What a spectacle, Roberto!
Oh my goodness, Roberto, that was something else. I mean, I'll never forget the game where he punched the ball into his own net. The Burnley match, that was just something else. And you know what? Very quickly, when David Martin made his debut at Chelsea, fans were so happy. Every time David Martin made a save, fans were going crazy. That's why the chant, we have a chance, Martin's and goal. That's how the whole chant came about. Because fans were like, yes.
It's actually, I mean, it's funny, because I hadn't actually really noticed that pattern, but you see the profile of player that that the club seem willing to invest in, because the whole crux of sort of West Ham's response to Sky's coverage has been to kind of lift their to list their spending patterns and to indicate that we have ambition. And I don't disagree with that. They obviously do have ambition, but it's ambition on certain terms. It's like Fornals is when you mentioned, and I think I watched Fornals when he played for Villarreal, and I thought that's a really good player. But there's a difference between having a really good player and having a really good player who you need to go into your team.
Yeah.
Sometimes your answer is just to stuff the middle of your midfield and defence with a couple of bastards for £5 million. Sometimes the flair player that can do the drag backs and the Cruyff turns is not.
Yeah. It's true. And if you look at West Ham's track record in getting good signings in, it's the Cresswells, the Antonios, players from the Championship who are hungry and want to do well for the team and grow. They've been the good signings. I mean, West Ham released their accounts last week, and we saw the net spend, I think it was 214 million, and there's been hardly any money gained from selling players. And that's down again to bad recruitment. I mean, the good signings have been Arnautovic, the Pirates. I mean, they did come with their baggage, but they were good signings. But again, they came with their baggage. The Antonios, apart from dressing up as a snowman and crashing his Lamborghini, there's no other baggage there. Cresswell's been great. Obviously, he's not the same player he was when he played for England, but he's been a good professional. Good professional.
He's never let you down. He's never going to be the source of a bad story.
Exactly,
is he?
And that's why Moyes said in his press conference recently, listen, right now, we need to change our whole philosophy with transfers. Stop bringing in players on a lot of money on big salary who are not going to work for this team. Let's go back and get players like Bowen who want a point to prove. I mean, clubs were interested in signing Bowen, but no one really invested. West Ham, for example. So stuff like that is what.
Who's in charge? Is it the managers at West Ham who are in charge of transfers?
Well, it's more so Sullivan who tends to do most of the signings.
Right. Okay.
And there's a really good column Danny Taylor wrote about 2 weeks ago.
Really good.
And he said one of the biggest reasons why Man United still haven't appointed a director of football is that Ed Woodward still has that thrill of closing deals.
Right.
And in my opinion, I feel what West Ham fans agree. The same thing applies to Sullivan.
Completely agree.
Right. Okay.
There's that thrill of always completing a deal, saying, "Yeah, I'm that guy."
This is one of my favourite topics, because it winds me up no end. It's the curse of the hobbyist sporting director. So you get people that have been very, very successful in business who think because it's football, it's easy, and that you don't need a very specific skill set to be essentially a sporting director. Because a lot of people equate sporting director with being, just find a player. And then most people that watch the game think, I know what a good player looks like. But do you know what a good player looks like in relation to what your team needs? Do you understand analysis properly? Can you head a department for which there is a conditioning requirement?
Do you have sufficient context to understand about the person and their family?
Do you have the qualifications, Joe? Like it's like anything.
Have you done any learning?
But have you? So we were just dealing also with the podcast we recorded this morning, actually. But if you treat a football club as a FTSE 100 company, which they should be, given their size and given their turnover and given the sums of money they deal with, if you had a department within that company that was that existed on the mentality of, have a go at that. I know you haven't done anything, but how hard can it be? No one would forgive that. And football clubs deserve that scrutiny. And this is not aimed at West Ham, because Daniel Levy has occasionally in the past done it at Spurs. He's kind of lost faith with the director of football model, although he's just appointed bad directors of football. But Ed Woodward is the most common example. I think Rush is right. I think the great thrill of being, I think Woodward's greatest problem is the thrill of being the big man. The kind of like, I'll do the Pogba deal, I'll do the Fernandes deal. It's that, and it's kind of,
they like the public profile.
I don't pretend it's not incredibly seductive. I can't promise that in the same situation I wouldn't be exactly the same. I probably would.
Totally.
I'd probably manage the team just out of ego. That would I would be
and play up front. Right?
Carries the most terrible megalomania. But the point being is that I've always felt that that's kind of the source of the issue. It's why, like, for instance, like you see players like Andrei Yarmolenko coming in at West Ham, you think West Ham the last club in Europe to know that Yarmolenko's finished. Like I loved him, like, but Yarmolenko should have been coming to this country 10 years ago because he was a super player. But there's a reason why he bombed out of Dortmund so quickly, and there's a reason why they were willing to let him go. And that's kind of good player, though he kind of remains. This is kind of the evidence for it.
Yeah, it's true. And I spoke to a Ukrainian journalist not long, about a couple of weeks ago, and he's saying same thing you said. Like, he left it way too late to leave. I think it was Dynamo Kiev.
He
left it way too late, and now we've seen him.
I think it's 28, Rush.
I think I'm saying,
really, really late, given
and obviously been injury prone. Was injury prone at Dortmund, been injury prone at West Ham. But just to go back to your earlier point, if I'm Sullivan, I'm looking at Brentford. I'm saying whoever's like signing those players and getting a lot of money on resale value, I'm appointing that guy as director of football. Because if you look at their model and the amount of money they've been able to recoup over the years, like DeAndre Grays, we have a promising player right now called Ollie Watkins. Like, if you look at what they're doing,
Ben Rama's another one. He's probably
And there's the guy at Brighton, the striker, his name I can't pronounce. Neil
Maupay.
That's the guy.
He's a good player.
I'm looking at that guy and thinking, come over to West Ham.
It's funny. We had Nikos Overhaul in here. He works at StatsBomb, who I think were heavily involved in the Brentford project initially. Maybe West Ham should just call them and invite some professionals, qualified professionals in.
The answer is like the answer to this problem is never is to build a department. It's not to find a guru. It's not to go sort of all Everton and say, right, Steve Walsh, you're my guy. You have this kind of, because no one has all the answers for transfers. That applies equally to traditional scouts or sort of modern analyst types who, the kind of the stats bomb model.
But think about Liverpool, right? I mean, I know people probably know the name of FSG, but how many people, just general football fans, actually know the names of the two guys who own Liverpool? Probably not that many, because they're not in the news very often, because they have, exactly as you're describing, a department which deals with that. With the exception of the manager, how many people know the specific names of the people who run the transfer committee?
I suppose Michael Edwards has become quite well known just because he's been so successful. And but
not because he writes a column in the Sun.
But I don't know. I mean, like, it's kind of, I suppose that's always been a little bit of the culture too. Is that you can't, like, if you look around at how successful clubs function, it's usually in a little bit of a vacuum. You don't hear very much from chairmen at most clubs or chief executives, and yet there's always been a lot of noise with West Ham. And I feel like if I was a West Ham fan, that probably antagonised me.
And you know what? In the build up to the Everton game, Brady spoke to Sky News, Gold's interview with TalkSport, and Sullivan interview with Even Standard. And when fans read those interviews, they're like, we haven't found out anything new that we don't know already, sort of thing. We spoke about the work in the community, and like, fairness to them, they do a lot of work in the community, like Braid, Gold, and Sullivan. But fans are like, we know that already. Like, talk to us about what's going on the pitch, like how we can address these issues. And that's another reason behind the protest as well. And like, for example, when Karen Brady wrote a column about like Pellegrini having the what is it again? Pellegrini having like he's the man like to deal with pressure, for example. Like that's what she wrote in her column.
Okay.
And about a month later, Pellegrini was sacked. So fans are like,
That's very confusing, right?
what's happening? You know what I mean?
Either she's lying or they're making decisions quite late.
Well, no, but it's even simpler than that. It's what is the need for that?
Yeah.
What is the need for that information to become public? It's like when West Ham went through that phase of David Sullivan's son tweeting out stuff on Twitter. Like I understand what's happening, and I also understand a father loves his son.
Is this the guy we looked at the pictures of?
No, that's
David Gold's son.
So Jack Sullivan, was tweeting out. Look, I understand that if your dad owns a football club and you're a teenager, you would do that. Yeah. I would do that, as a 16-year-old or however old it was.
I would do that.
And I'm not criticising someone for allowing their son to. That's going to be very difficult to say no to. I get that. Of course. But from a supporter's perspective, that is not how I want my club to run. And you've also got like ex-West Ham employee running around spilling team news. Yeah.
Do we assume that it's a strategy then? Because as Rosh says, if the three of them have separate interviews in the lead up to a game, it's not by coincidence, is it? It's not their individual offices that have set this up, and it just happens that three different media outlets are getting the three different directors stroke owners. Yeah. I mean, presumably there's some kind of media strategy behind it. What could be their thinking as to why they want to involve themselves so publicly? I know at the beginning they tried this is our home. We've come home. This is our football club. This isn't a business. We haven't bought it to make money.
And that's true.
We're one of you, and that is true, right?
True. Yeah.
But that is also significant because it suggests a particular manner of approaching a project, right, where their faces are attached to it because they are also fans.
What's the question?
I'm saying 10 years.
You've been talking for a long time, but you need to put a question mark somewhere.
10 years later, right?
See how serious his face has got there. If you criticise him.
10 years later, that the three of them then have their three interviews ahead of a game. Yeah. And they presumably haven't learned the lesson that maybe it's best for them not to be so public with this. Yeah. It must be a strategy. They must be thinking through it and doing it on purpose. The question is why?
This is a theory, I'm guessing. I've always felt there's a little bit too much personal pride.
Right.
Because I actually, I believe that they want the best for the club. I believe that they want to succeed.
Sure.
Completely believe it. And David Gold is a childhood West Ham fan. I completely understand he wants the very best for his football club. But I feel like sometimes that it's a little bit, the club can be a little bit too hands-on in its attempts to trying to correct the narrative and correct the story around them. And I would say that before this weekend. I'm not really referencing that. It's just a very extreme example, but I've always felt like it's sort of, if something goes wrong, then there's too much compulsion to kind of put it right manually rather than let sort of, let events on the pitch or let a good signing or a good couple of results or a really good few months of results or a strong mid-table finish, for instance. That's the most powerful PR tool there is. There's nothing like that. Whereas doing a column, I don't know, because if things aren't going well, you can write whatever you like in the column and it can make as much sense you want, but someone's going to pick it apart because people read things in the way they want to read it, in the same way that they watch YouTube videos or they see what they want to see, and that's the same. And I feel like you're kind of making yourself very vulnerable by doing that. I don't know.
No, I agree, because if you look at the comments whenever Brady tweets a column, it's always negative. Well, mostly it's always most parts of it's negative. But I feel like with Brady, she's always going to be in the spotlight because obviously she does like a lot of speaking events, Up to Your Apprentice, for example, and obviously the column as you mentioned. And I feel like Sullivan as well, I feel like he's passed it down to his son because his son had that documentary on the women's team.
Oh, I haven't seen
it. Was for the
I had that for the water, but that was totally worth it.
What is it?
So you do it.
Youngest Boss, Football's Youngest Boss, I think it was called.
Oh, I haven't seen it.
UK's Youngest Football.
Yeah, that's
so if you I'm getting older, so I'm going to a stage in my life where I can no longer stay awake throughout the whole of Match of the Day necessarily. So sometimes, I months ago I was watching it and I fell asleep and I woke up and this was on because it used to be on BBC immediately after Match of the Day. I reckon just go and watch it.
What's it called?
It's called UK's Youngest Football Boss.
Yeah, that's the one.
Right, okay.
That's the one. Yeah. So just documenting what he does on a day-to-day basis for the women's team. To be honest, it was a good documentary because it highlights that give the women's team a bit of exposure.
Right, yeah.
You know, showing the good stuff they
Did
do.
you end up feeling like I want to learn more about the players?
Yeah,
and the
of
coach?
course.
There's a lot of Jack Sullivan in that program. It's like it's a program about him and what he does, but it's kind of the real story is this sort of this. It's like it's a newly built women's team, newly launched, and it's going on its journey, and the team is full of these really interesting characters and the players and the coach who. Bit sweary for my taste, but interesting guy. Yeah. And I don't know. Like to be fair, I only gave it 2 episodes. I have not watched. Yeah, I know. I'm not giving a complete account of what it is. Maybe
I'm definitely going to watch
3.
this now.
Yeah,
I'll watch the whole thing.
So I suggest anyone like. If you're in the UK, I think it's probably on the iPlayer still.
Yeah, or YouTube.
Okay.
Or
I bet it's made on YouTube. Yeah, I would have thought so.
Some choice clips.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
No, because I can say like it was a season where I think I'm right in saying when the women's team reached the FA Cup final against Man City.
Yeah.
So it was good. It was good in that aspect. Gave them exposure. I mean, there's a lot of good players in the women's team.
Right.
Obviously, they suffered a heavy defeat yesterday, but yeah, a lot of good players.
Okay.
But I was gonna say very quickly when I spoke to Joey O'Brien recently about like, what's it like. Playing under the board. He said David Gold in particular tends to be at the training ground a lot.
Right.
Like just to
I've heard
give the
that.
players a few motivational speeches like, come on guys, big game, let's try our best sort of thing.
Right.
So of the 3, like he does a lot at the training ground.
He's a genuine fan.
Yeah.
Like he,
sure.
like in the,
Hey, 442 Green Street, right?
Yeah.
That's his home address.
okay. Yeah.
I remember because it says it's 442.
Yeah.
It's easy
that
to
might
it's
mean
easy to
something
remember.
different to a modern audience, though. That's all.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Green
A
Street
film
content.
about violence. Yeah. With an American.
No, I mean, it's the documentary is well-meaning. Mm-hmm. I just feel like sometimes maybe it could have done with a bit of an edit,
Right.
here and there,
Okay.
like a kind of like a redirection. But maybe people should watch it. And
Sounds like you're
judge themselves.
challenging the license fee.
Yeah.
Are you putting down a political point here?
Is this the point where I go off on a big rant about? No,
Sounds like
no.
You know what? A porn star actually became a fan for West Ham due to that
As a
film.
result of that.
Yeah.
So
I don't want to say her name in case you're not under 18. Under 18 viewers watch this podcast. You know what I mean? So,
we are a family-friendly podcast.
Yeah, indeed.
We don't even really know what Rosh means by porn star. So
I wouldn't have thought that would be the reason that a porn star would have become a fan of West Ham. I would have thought it'd be the history of David Golden Sullivan. But never mind. Presumably, right? You've been to the stadium loads now.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about it and your experience of being there? Because we hear a lot of. I've not been, but I hear a lot of negativity about it.
Yeah, I mean, like, a lot of West Ham fans will agree. Like, London Stadium will never be home. It will never be Upton Park.
Right.
I mean, it's great in terms of like a lot of fans, 60,000 seat stadium. There's been a rise in demand for season tickets. It's been great in terms of like commercial events. For example, I think it was last summer where they held the baseball event. So stuff like that. Stuff like that has been good. But in terms of like, the core, like, beneath all the cracks, it's not home for West Ham fans. It doesn't feel like home when you're there. I mean,
Right. And does it feel like everyone's experiencing that as well? You
I mean,
can hear it in the stadium.
Yeah, I mean,
or
the
feel it in the
first
atmosphere.
the first 5 minutes is good, like fans singing, blowing bubbles, singing a lot of songs. And after that, it dies down for a bit. And then like, when West Ham score, that's when it picks up a little bit and then it dies down again.
Right.
So, because I was at like an event recently and a former player said he believes away teams like thrive playing at the London Stadium because they know fans are not really happy being on the ground. And I thought that's the case because this season in particular, I think I'm right in saying West Ham have only won like 3 or 4 times at London Stadium. It's not a fortress like Upton Park used to be. Upton Park used to be so intimidating because it's so small, close to the pitch.
Yeah.
Especially the away ends.
I used to I went as an away fan to the last Tottenham West Ham game at Upton Park, and I used to hate it there.
Yeah.
Hated going there, and that's a compliment because that's what you want. And it was so cramped and so shit, and also it was louder.
Yeah.
And it was I don't know. It was kind of it felt like even things like. Not just the stadium, but the walk to the stadium from the tube. Everything about that felt very West Ham.
Yeah.
In the sense that, football stadiums used to be built in the heart of communities, like they'd just been dropped in the middle of terrace houses.
Yeah.
Upton Park was like that.
Yeah.
To the point of that, narrow alley you had to go round to get to the away end back then.
Yeah.
And it's like
Now you can pop to Westfield on the way home.
yeah. Well, I got a few West Ham supporting friends who've recently given up their season tickets. And one of the things they said, which is interesting, which I hadn't even considered, is like when you go there, when you walk past Westfield and you go into it, like there's none of the stuff that you associate with football grounds. You don't get like concessions. You don't get sort of places which sell scarves and stuff that you might not stop at, but they're part of your little routine. Like if you go to most clubs, most fans will recognise this. There are little landmarks, temporary landmarks, which appear on match days. And by all accounts, I don't know if this is true because I haven't been for a couple of years now to London Stadium, but that's just not the case.
Yeah, I mean, for example, from when I arrive at Stratford Station to where I get my accreditation, it takes a good 20 minutes. Yeah. Because you have to pass through security.
Do you still have to go to that tent outside?
Yeah,
that's weird.
You still have to go through that tent as well. It takes ages. It takes ages. But there's like a little, a few like stalls, food stalls. So fans like that because, different options for like what to pick and whatnot. But if you were to ask like most West Ham fans, they'll say the cons outweigh the pros in terms of being there. Because I remember Upton Park, you had the Bold and Chavin pub, and that was like a go-to place before games. Like even if you don't drink, you just go there for the atmosphere and just go there for the vibe. It was that good. Yeah. And I remember, I think it was after the Watford game last August. I thought, let me just go to the pub just on a Sunday, see how fans are. I was there for about a good 3 hours. A lot of fans are like, I'm finishing West Ham, like don't even want to go back.
Really?
Some haven't even been since they demolished Upton Park. But yeah, a lot of
really,
fans,
they didn't even.
Yeah, like one told me he was a season ticket holder at Upton Park. Thought I'm not going.
He didn't even extend it to the same.
Didn't even extend it. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, I didn't know that.
Didn't extend it at all. So
it's a block of flats now, right?
Yes, it is. And the Chavin pub's been closed down for refurbishment. So they've suffered as a result of stadium move as well.
That's always the contradiction, Rush, for me. Like I absolutely take the point about them increasing their work with the community, but that's very difficult for me to accept given like how readily they moved out of the community. Because I remember a couple of years ago I went to where Highfield Road used to be in Coventry, and it's now this kind of it's not a housing estate, but it's like a housing community. And there's a little plaque which marks where the centre circle used to be, but there's all these little places like a local park and like a newsagent who I went to talk to some of the people who work there, and they said we love the football because you always had this footfall around match days, and also they said like when the football isn't here and when there isn't as much focus on the place, the council don't spend quite as much money maintaining the facilities. So like you go into the local park and there's litter everywhere, and like the kids' slide is being graffitied, and there's sort of like broken bottles and stuff because it doesn't have the same scrutiny without the football. And while people think, oh, football is, you don't want football fans, they're a problem. That's a very simplified view of the reality, because a lot of these places depend on that sort of that human traffic.
Yeah, sure.
And so I know that they have extended their work in the community, but it's difficult to take when you've kind of said, we don't want to represent this community anymore, which is it's a difficult thing.
And I also forgot to mention, there was like a pie and mash store, I think it was called Nathan L's, and they also closed down as well. Right. Due to the club movement to London Stadium. So when you're a fan, there's things you become in a regular habit of before you go to a match. Now if you go on the stadium, you might go to H&M if it's raining to get out a jacket or an umbrella.
No trip to football stadium should be. You shouldn't go to prep when you're going to football. Like it's like
come on now.
Buy a £5 sandwich.
That's a lunch during a workday trip. Like I'll have a nice
showing
soup.
your middle class nature.
I freely admit to being a 3-4 times a week prep
inside a glass shaped building.
They do not have enough avocado.
I bought food at another stadium the other week. I think it was before the Sheffield United game. I was just really hungry.
Sushi.
I bought a hot dog, right? Yeah. It cost me £9. £9.
What did it come with? Like anything, or was it just?
No, just the hot dog.
Was it good?
It was okay, but not worth £9. Not worth £9. You know what I mean?
That's taking the wind out of my sails. A £9 hot dog.
£9 hot dog.
I tell you what, I think I've said this before on the podcast, but a friend of the podcast, Mark Leach, football photographer, he told me once he was driving back from a family holiday in the north of England somewhere, and they stopped off in Stoke-on-Trent on the way back, and Mark was wandering around the streets looking for where the old stadium used to be. Mm-hmm. He's wandering down this little road, and an elderly woman comes out of her house and says, are you lost? Are you all right? And he says, no, I was just looking for where the old stadium was. And she pointed down the end of the road and said it used to be right there. And he got talking to her about it. Yeah. And she was saying how, there used to be thugs walking down the road all the time and police everywhere and horse poo and a brick through the window. And he says, "Oh, you must be happy it's gone." She says, "No, I really miss it." And it is, even though it's not, she's not a business and she's not sort of massively adversely affected by it. But I think, as you say, when they're dropped into the middle of a community and they've been there for a very, very long time, it's difficult for places to become accustomed to that disappearing. And it's not quite as extreme as, but it's not dissimilar to old mining towns where the mines are closed, right?
I think why Stoke's really interesting is because if you go to Stoke, it's now possible to go to the Britannia Stadium, or Bet365 as it is, well, I think it still is.
Yeah.
It's possible to go there without actually going to Stoke first.
Yeah.
Because you can get off the train and you just turn right.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think it's so someone's collapsed around.
It's a bit WWE going on.
Yeah. It's surrounded by like a harvester and a Volvo dealer, and it's, if you walk there, you walk down it's actually a great walk down a canal with all sorts of sort of remnants of industry alongside it. It's great, but it's miles away from anywhere.
Yeah.
And to get there, you have to go down a dual carriageway, which is always kind of a bad sign. And like, I remember being told by a local there that sort of the land where the old stadium used to be is kind of just wasteland now. They haven't really repurposed it properly.
Right.
So it's...
I was going to say, you know what? And the worst thing now for West Ham would be to have a 60,000 seater stadium and be in the Championship. That would be terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, West Ham fans, the die-hard fans, they'll back their team to the end, but I don't think 60,000 fans have been attending game in the Championship. Probably 30 at best, maybe 35.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, well, on that note, let's talk about the football.
Yeah.
David Moyes is now in charge.
Yeah.
How do you feel that that's going so far?
Yeah, I mean, I like Moyes. Moyes is really good, but I mean, it hasn't quite had the desired effect on the pitch. I mean, his first game in charge, the 4-0 win over Bournemouth, that was really good.
Yeah.
Team played well, but ever since then, it hasn't been the same. I mean, that's been the only win since he's been back.
A bit unlucky over the weekend against Brighton, though, right?
It was unlucky, but I mean, they should have sort of sorted it off. I mean, but to be honest, it sounds really harsh, but I'm going to blame Masuaku for that.
Right.
Because prior to coming on, West Ham were comfortable. 3-1 win, fans were saying, 3 points, much needed 3 points, by the way, was sorted. When Masuaku came on for Antonio, I think it was in the 71st minute, that's when it went downhill.
Right.
When Brighton scored 2 of their goals, it came from West Ham's right side. Who defends West Ham's right side? Masuaku.
Right.
And if you look back at the highlights on YouTube, you'll see it, like, not good enough defending. And the same thing happened against Arsenal last December. West Ham winning 1-0. Masuaku comes on for Cresswell in like 20 minutes.
And Pepe does it a couple of times.
Arsenal scored 3 goals in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So these are things Moyes has to consider moving forward because tough games are coming up. Man City next, Liverpool after that.
Yeah, a really tough run, right?
A tough run.
It's a strange sub to make though. Like I think he's a good attacking fullback.
Yeah.
But that's a really weird conservative sub to make.
Yeah. I mean, the thing with that is Antonio coming back from hamstring injury, so he wasn't going to play the full 90. But I mean, still, you got to do your defensive duties if you're like, look at where West Ham are in the league. You know what I mean? You can't be messing about like that.
Yeah. So I mean, the shift from Pellegrini to Moyes seems on paper like a pretty significant one in terms of style. Do you feel like you're starting to see that in the way that the team are playing? Is it particularly different?
At the start, Moyes was trying to play with wing backs. It's like Masuaku and Zabaleta. So although I criticised Masuaku previously, I mean, he is good going forward. So if you are going to play wing backs, it's better to get him, playing in an advanced role. But even when Moyes tried to play like 3-5-2 or 3-5-1-1, it wasn't really working.
Right. It
wasn't working at all. So he tried I believe he should try 4-4-2. Obviously now with Jared Bowen here at the club now, I think he should play either Haller and Tony up front or Haller and Bowen up front.
Right.
Because when West Ham play 4-4-2, I feel like West Ham are dangerous.
Yeah.
We saw it against Southampton in December as well with a 1-0 win, play good. I mean, if you're going to play a striker up front, it can't be Haller because
he's not by himself.
In my opinion, he's too lethargic to play up top by himself.
But it's also not what was brought out of the best in the Bundesliga either. He was playing next to Jovic, wasn't he? So that's...
I think that's why Antonio is so valuable.
Yeah.
I think he's actually one of the most underrated players in the league because Antonio's a problem. He's a good footballer, but he's also he's such a good athlete as well.
He's a runaway train, isn't he?
Yeah, has pace.
Yeah, I mean when he's fit, he's phenomenal. He's kind of actually as an opposition fan, he's the one name you don't want to see on that team sheet.
Yeah, so true.
Yeah, he's just the first time I met Rosh actually was at the West Ham Watford game earlier in the season, and Antonio was brilliant. and Haller played really well as a result of having Antonio around him.
Yeah.
So you need to. I think Bowen could do it as well.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, I mean, £22 million, Jarrod Bowen is a lot of money, but I mean, he is a good player though. So it's scrappy and sort of like stylistically ugly, but he'll do some good things.
So I mean, we're a bit far from it now, but what happened with Pellegrini? Because that seemed so promising, didn't it, initially?
I mean, I remember 2 West Ham games I covered right at the beginning of the season were the Watford game and then Bournemouth away. And I remember leaving both thinking, yeah, West Ham have cracked this. Like they sort of, in both instances, they reacted to adversity and they showed the kind of spirit away from home that you don't really associate with them. They're more of a, like historically in the sort of Premier League era, West Ham have been the kind of turn up against the big teams when the Sky cameras are there at home kind of side. But then in those games they were great. And then I don't know. I mean, I just think there were certain issues got exposed. So the sort of dependency on Antonio sort of reared its head. Haller is, I mean, I remember thinking when they signed for 40 million quid.
45,
that's worse. Okay, so you think
he was fantastic last season.
Yeah, but who was he playing alongside last season? And with the quality of the team that he was in, and like, if you're playing alongside Jovic, you know, like it's like, but it's like it's the Shevchenko Rebrov problem. You know, I remember growing up thinking, and I've learned this lesson the hard way, because you know when you hear, all right, Tottenham signed Rebrov, you think brilliant, and you think, in retrospect, of course they signed that one, you know, like, and it's that problem, and I don't know, and also I've been reading like Rush's coverage with, you know, Ollie Kay and other people at The Athletic about sort of some of the noises that have come out of the dressing room. Some of the English players haven't, you know, loved the attitude of some of the players that have come in.
Really?
Apparently so. This might be your bit, man. I don't.
No, actually, some feel like we haven't taken training seriously, haven't given it their all. And I mean, very quickly, just go back on Pellegrini. There's one word which I'll sum up his spell. It was very stubborn. A very, very stubborn man. Really liked making changes. You know, West Ham fans would be like, this is the problem, like, please address it, please make changes. Pellegrini wouldn't do it. He wouldn't do it, just be stubborn. Even me as a press, like, I'm asking questions on behalf of the fans, trying to, you know, get some information on what's going on, how you're going to change it. Pellegrini wouldn't give you, like, he wouldn't really build that sort of relationship with you. You couldn't build a report. You couldn't build a rapport with him.
Right. Okay.
It's a lot frustrating as well from a media point of view. I remember once, right, I was running late for his press conference and I had to get an Uber. I spent £34 to get there, and it was probably the worst press conference I've ever been to. It was so bad. I was thinking,
did he just one of those where
just really bad, like like asking questions. It's not even worth asking a follow up because the first answer was terrible anyway. I was thinking, like, £35 to come to this press conference. You know what I mean?
Have you noticed the difference with David Moyes?
Yeah, I mean, David Moyes, obviously results haven't been great, but he's definitely trying his best to get the players rallied up, and well, him and Martin Noble, obviously Martin Noble is always going to be influential, but he's definitely trying to get the key players to, like, say, come on, let's be together and get the best out of his bad situation. Because even David Moyes' press conference, like, each and every week to get better and better, because he's so good at what he says, and he's determined to get the best out of his bad situation. And I'm backing him. I think he can do it, but it's going to be tough.
Okay.
That's the thing.
Do you think, I mean, like, I wonder what this summer will be, because let's assume that West Ham survive and they're in the Premier League next season. Like, what are the important things to do? Like, what's day one of pre-season at West Ham? If Moyes is there, they're in the Premier League and they need to go forward. Yeah,
we'll definitely get rid of Carlos Sanchez.
Why is it? Who made that decision? What is it? Why would you look at Carlos Sanchez and think, you are what I need in my football team? Like, he's 33.
I mean, the last time Carlos Sanchez was good, I had Afro. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? So him, but in all seriousness, just to have more like players that are just gonna work hard for the team and just grow. Like Moyes said, like, forget trying to sign older players. Let's build in younger players who we can, like, invest in, and then possibly look at, like, if it were to be sold, having some sort of a lot of money to, like, do the same system again. If you look at his time at Everton, I know it was quite some time ago, but look at his time at Everton. Leighton Baines became a future England international. John Stones, he got it from Barnsley, became a future England international. Jagielka from Sheffield United, if I'm correct in saying, became an England international.
Coleman, Irish, but
Coleman. I mean, and then you had the signings like Fellaini, and then
Cahill,
and Stephen Pienaar, you know, these sort of signings as well.
Naismith was another.
And we sort of seen
Barkley
it
come through as well.
Yeah, and we're sort of
Barkley
seeing it
came
with
through.
Thomas Kusek. I think he's very similar to Fellaini. So we're sort of seeing he's trying to do his bit of
Right.
carte blanche at the club. So
Yeah.
that sort of thing, if he's given the backing by the board, I feel like he can replicate at West Ham.
And the time, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the key about his time at
Yeah.
Everton was he was there for it was
Yeah.
13. No,
Yeah.
it wasn't 13 years. Was it 7 years?
It'd be 2013, I think.
Yeah.
13.
Was when he left to go to United
Oh no, I mean, I think he was there for 13
Yeah.
years.
for 13 years.
Yeah, I think so.
No, I think it was 13. Yeah, it popped into my head.
Yeah.
It felt
Okay.
wrong when I said it, but I think it.
Don't doubt
is,
yourself.
Yeah.
I did. I already have doubted myself.
All about the confidence.
Yeah.
All about the
Come on,
confidence.
It will be 7. It's 7 now. Yeah.
No, like-
But he was there for a very long time.
Yeah,
Had the time to develop those sorts of institutions,
And the
right?
thing is, I know West Ham fans like make a lot of reference to like, you know, Moyes' win percentage wasn't really great during his first spell in charge, but it was encouraging towards the end of the season. Like, it was encouraging the progress he was making. I mean, he made Arnautovic a striker. That was probably the best thing he'd done at the club. And then when you brought in Pellegrini, you're thinking like, Moyes definitely could have done better than what
Right.
Pellegrini was, or even on par with what Pellegrini was able to do, considering he was on so much money as well. So yeah, I'm hoping the board will back him because, like I said, like I thought he can do a good job at West Ham.
He's a good recruiter. So, for people who haven't read it already, there's a chapter in Mike Calvin's Living on the Volcano which deals with the way Moyes used to recruit at Everton. Like it's like he had a little sort of battle room within Finch Farm where he would not only sort of list targets, but he would list targets in sort of 2 or 3 years out. So he'd say, right, well, Dimitar Bilyatinov was going to be available in 2000X.
That guy was. I forgot about that guy. He was great.
It's because no one can pronounce his name.
Right. Billy Ednadon,
Yeah, Billy. Yeah, that one. Yeah, that guy. Okay, so he would say, right, well, we want to be looking at this guy in 2007 because his contract situation is going to be X, and he will be at the right age to do this for our side. So obviously, like, over 10 years has passed now, and the time has changed, the market's changed, the nature of the game has changed, and West Ham's finances are different to what they were. Of course they were. However, giving someone like Moyes that level of control is, like Rosh just said, it's not only kind of indicative of what you want him to be in terms of like giving him a good degree of permanence, but also you're saying, right, you are going to build this team on the basis of what you want it to be. If that involves like Fellaini type players, then that's fine, because that's what your manager is comfortable with. You can't get a manager like David Moyes and say, right, well, I kind of want you to coach like Roberto Martinez, because you can't do it.
Exactly, yeah.
You can't do it, and you can't equip him to do it, because that's going to go. I mean, that's not only going to go wrong, but it's going to be very costly as well, because you're going to devalue a lot of players in the process and waste a lot of money.
So you embrace the situation.
You embrace the situation, and if David Moyes is your guy, David Moyes is your guy, and you take all the qualities that he represents. I mean, like, we can argue about what those are, but that's the principle you have to work under, because otherwise, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, exactly,
Moyes,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, is relegation a real fear for you?
Well, I was gonna say, if the worst case scenario happens where West Ham get relegated, I still feel like Moyes can do a job to get West Ham out of the league.
That was going to be my second question, yeah.
Because I mean, I covered the under 23s and there's some really good players. I mean, we have Nathan Holland currently on loan at Oxford United. He's really good. Anthony Scully, like, really good young striker.
Connor Coventry, where is he?
Connor Coventry, he's currently on loan at Lincoln City.
Right.
But he's really good.
He's a good player.
Really good player.
Okay. And do you get the sense from the club that if they were to be relegated, that sticking with Moyes would be something that they would be comfortable doing?
I mean, in my opinion, it would be foolish to get rid of Moyes.
Yeah.
If they were to suffer relegation to the Championship.
Wouldn't rule them out.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't
right?
rule out, but I think it was stupid because you can't keep doing the managerial change like
Yeah.
every 5 minutes. It's just it's not going to work. You just stick with Moyes. I mean, if they stuck with Moyes last time, West Ham probably would have been higher on the table.
Yeah.
Right.
Just possibly thinking about it now. So, I mean, no one wants to have relegation because I mean, me personally, I'm not trying to go like Wigan and Huddersfield, and Rotherham and all these sort of places. You know what I mean?
Possibly Japanese.
You know what I mean?
That's not good.
The only good thing I can think about relegation for West Ham.
You would be the real victim of West Ham.
You know what I mean? Oh my reviews on TripAdvisor for these hotels. That'll be something. But the only good thing I can think
What
about.
somebody think of?
Yeah, you know what I mean? The only good thing I can think about for relegation would be playing Millwall. That's the only good thing I can think about.
Sure.
Yeah.
Playing Millwall.
Yeah.
That's the only positive thing I can think about.
Even closer to your house than Stafford. Right? Perfect.
I know. But yeah, fans are just hopeful that we can just stay in the league and just build on next season, because some fans think, if we get relegated, we could, rebuild like Southampton did previously when they were relegated, and like Wolves when they were relegated. But sets of fans think if we get relegated, we could do a Sunderland and go to League One.
Yeah.
And the thing is, when you think about the Championship, it's so competitive. Like for me, bar the Premier League is one of my favourite like leagues to watch. Like I really love watching it, and it's not guaranteed you're gonna get promoted if you suffer relegation at the first time.
Yeah.
You have no like the right to think, oh yeah, we'll get up. Look at Leeds; they've been, you know what I mean.
I'd say it's the opposite, Rush. Like it's almost like you have to, when you go down now, like you have to have like 5 years of dysfunction. Yeah. It's like you have to be cleansed by it. Like it's almost like the days of kind of Charlton bouncing between the leagues and West Brom. I think that's kind of over. I mean, I know West Brom are probably going to come up, but I think the template is hopefully not Sunderland because that's a little bit too dramatic. But sides like Swansea, you go down, you got all these players on massive contracts that you have to kind of weed out somehow, and you have to deal with that, and then you have the small squad, and you know, then your fans hate you and your owners, and you know that. So there's all these little phases. West Ham, honestly, I think West Ham going down would be a disaster.
Yeah. But they could get their wish. The owners could sell if they get relegated.
Yeah,
they could think like, you know what. It's been there for 10 years. Fans don't really like us too much. Like,
I suppose Ashley. I mean, I'm not comparing West Ham's owners to Mike Ashley, but that was always the logic with him, though, wasn't it? That you know, relegation is asset decrease in values, and he'd go, and it was. I mean, no one deserves to be compared to Mike Ashley, but you know.
Okay, well, we began this by talking about 10 years. At this point, I would like to say, incidentally, the article that we referenced at the head of the show, a piece you wrote alongside Ollie Kay about the last 10 years, is very worth reading. If you would like to do so, you can visit theathletic.co.uk/Tifo, get a 7-day free trial, read that, and then bail. No, don't bail. Get 50% off an annual subscription. Do you know how much that works out to be per day?
6p.
It's 8p. I ask you every week.
It's
8p.
I feel like if I did not intentionally get it wrong. I always forget, but I remember and nearly every time I'm too high, so I just thought.
Sure.
And also, it kind of creates this nice little.
It does.
Improvised.
It's a great piece, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it sure is. Well, there's another one that you wrote a couple of weeks before that. Sort of, there's a whole load of really solid West Ham coverage on the Athletic at the moment.
It's really good. I'm not a West Ham fan, and I tend not to follow it. So I was reading some of Ross's stuff for the first time today, and I was surprised how good it is.
I read it with a smirk, but I still enjoy what I read.
And also, if you're trying to think, where on earth is Florian Radetzky? I interviewed him, so you can read that as well. Just a little plug there.
We'll do that. But anyway, did I say the URL? I did, didn't I? Yep. I'll say it one more time. It's athletic.co.uk/Tifo, 7-day free trial, 50% off an annual subscription, 8 pence per day. 10 years later, presumably we agree that West Ham, as a result of their financial situation, their support, and etc., should not be in the situation that they are currently in, right? Realistically, let's say that the club isn't relegated this year. What can we, and I will ask you both this, what can we expect hypothetically to see from West Ham were things to go well? Is it really realistic that they can break into the top 4? Oh, who wants to go first? You want to go first?
You go for it,
You go first.
I don't think the club should say top 4. I think that's been unrealistic. I'll say try and build like a few top half finishes,
yes.
Like top 10. Have that and then build on from there rather. Because I think like that is realistic.
Top end Europa League, maybe.
Yeah, maybe like 8th place, 9th place every now and then. Because look, last season, I think I'm right in saying Leicester and West Ham finish on 8th or 9th, but they finished same level on points. Leicester, I've gone this up here.
Yeah.
West Ham have gone the opposite direction.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So just
the blueprint is there.
Yeah, blueprint is there. Just try and build on for a top 10 finish and then go from there. Really.
Okay.
I think first thing I think one of the issues has to be culture. I think a couple of things really need to change West Ham. So, firstly, needs to be less noise, fewer columns, definitely.
More noise in the stadium, though.
More noise in the stadium, but I completely agree with what Rosh said in that you need to have an era of stability. You need 10 years of finishing 10th. Because you can take the benefits of being, a solid, reliable Premier League side, and also I think one of the most revealing things of the last few days was obviously around whilst Jarrod Bowen's transfer was being completed, a lot of information was leaking out about his contract negotiations, and apparently he was two of the points of contention were he didn't want to accept a 50% wage drop in case West Ham got relegated. And also, he wanted a relegation release clause, which I don't know. I have no idea what's in his contract. But if those two things are true, they tell you a little bit about how players view West Ham is that you are not a stable environment. Things can go wrong.
Yeah.
Part of that is informed by the league table, of course, because no one's stupid. But part of that is informed by the history, and that this is a place of calamity. Ultimately, West Ham are not going back to Upton Park. Can't happen. So you got to make the most of what is still like a 94-year lease, I think now. Goodness me. So you need to make West Ham a less of a nebulous concept, because at the moment West Ham doesn't stand for anything. It's the club where executives talk about being better than Tottenham and finishing in the Champions League places. Maybe they can supersede Spurs, but they're not going to finish in the Champions League places, not in the current sort of mini era. But also you have to create some sort of touch point. And if that is players that the fans respond positively to, or players who they watch, if it's a team full of Robert Snodgrasses, i.e. not the best kind of footballer, maybe, or an Antonio. I think Antonio is a great example, like someone that you want to go and see, and someone that has a bit of personality, someone who isn't transient. You don't, like, fewer Yarmolenko's, because Yarmolenko's there because he's not quite good enough to play anywhere else in the Premier League, any higher up the Premier League at this point in his career.
I'm starting to think Yarmolenko's done something to you personally, Seb.
Maybe.
That's really a different podcast though. Like, I could do that for an hour and a half. Like, I just, you know what it is? I'm bitter because I wanted to see him in his prime.
Yeah.
I wanted to see him here when he was 25 years old, because he was such a fun player, and I want to say never forgiven him for that. But so my point being is, like, I want, Declan Rice, good example. Mark Noble, good example. Antonio, a great example. Aaron Cresswell, Rosh brought him up earlier. Really good example.
Good players.
You need these players, and you need a hub of players that are going to develop and grow into something. Not players who are there for 2 years before something better comes along for them.
Yeah.
That's the start point.
And lastly, I also want to see West Ham take cup competitions very seriously.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, I have a suit in my wardrobe. I want to wear it to Wembley in the not too distant future. So that seriously, because I remember the Oxford game, that was very bad. I mean,
the 4-0.
Yeah, the 4-0, that was very bad. You're thinking, like, fans travel so far to get here, and, like, the team couldn't even score a goal. Like, you want to see West Ham take that seriously, the cups, because we're not going to win the league. I mean, we'd love to win the league, but that's not going to happen. So whether it's
opportunities there,
whether it's the Capital One Cup or the FA Cup, well, personally, I love it to be the FA Cup. Just take it seriously, because
Carabao now.
Yeah.
The green energy drink cup. With all its credibility and its gravitas.
So that's what I want to see.
But that's right. This is one of the problems of modern fandom, though, isn't it? Because it's like, there's so many. There's every other club in the Premier League, apart from maybe 3, it's absolutely impossiple for them to win it. Yeah. So if you're taking the domestic cups off the
exception
table,
of Man United, who haven't quite worked
out. Different podcast. Sorry. But, like, if you're a fan, why are you going? What is if you think about the relationship between fandom and aspiration, and you're saying, right, well, we want to go to the domestic cups as soon as possible because that helps us survive, or it helps us reach
it's that 140 million pounds kind of Premier League broadcasting income.
I understand the logic behind it, but you've got to, as an owner, you have to temper that with a recognition of what it is people want to see. Like, people want to be enthused by their football team. They don't want to see a joyless grind to 14th. That doesn't appeal to people, and it definitely doesn't if you've got 60,000 seater stadium.
Well, also as an owner, or owners who self-proclaimed aren't running a business and are running a football club that they love, right? Presumably, cup competitions would be important as a part of that.
For sure.
Because you can't just, like, aspire to be in the league every season.
Exactly.
It's something you want to have, like, something to look forward to. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, if the Carabao Cup finals, end of this month or early of March, I think it is.
Last week of February, I think.
So let's just say, like, in an ideal world, West Ham are facing Man City in the final. Like, obviously, the league form's very bad right now. But West Ham fans have something to look forward to. Like, ideally, that was the scenario. So that's why...
May also inspire better league performances as well, right?
Exactly.
If there's momentum there.
Exactly.
I just think it's healthier. Yeah. Like, it's also a selling point. Like, it's a recruiting tool ultimately, because, like, okay, so Villa are in issues at the moment, but Villa have got to the domestic cup final. Now, if you're going out in the summer on the basis that they survive, isn't it easier to recruit to have a broader range of options as a result of appearing at Wembley, like in a kind of visible final? Even if it is, I know the League Cup is not the FA Cup final or the Champions League final, but it's still a big deal to players. It's still a marquee day within their careers.
And obviously, West Ham will have more tickets to sell for the stadium tour because they can show the cup to.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Hey, it's a cup.
Yeah.
We didn't even get into the final, Rosh. I don't know about actually winning the final. Like, see, the trend in British football is like getting to a final is now like the reward, and then you get done 5-0 by Man City, and then everyone, then you get to play Europa League football. But I don't know, win.
Yeah.
No. I don't have any aspiration as a fan anymore. So
No,
look
clearly.
what it's done to me.
Okay, listen, Roshane, Thomas, thanks so much for coming in, man. Really
Much
appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.
Seb, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And we'll be back next week with something else which is similar to this. Don't know what it is. Thanks very much. Goodbye.